The future started yesterday with a team who are determined and change the course of history, at least in Asia, and what we now see as present day. So the present day as you know it, I don't need to explain this further. Influencing the course of history and my active role in it. So to do that, today I share with you my story, taking you back through time, back to yesterday. This is a typical scenario in the music business. Always low on budgets, heavily depending on media relations and strategy. We got to be constantly creative in our ideas, in our execution, and engagement. So 2 examples. The Chorus, is a sibling brother-sister band, musician, singer-songwriter, extremely talented, and quite a character there, Dr. Bombay. Now, these 2, very different, but face similar challenges. They could not hold airplay back then. Maybe because the Chorus is a bit difficult to pronounce, the Chorus, and Dr. Bombay was not very cool. Now, so thinking out of the box, what we had to do was we approached Mix FM and said, they were the new formatted radio at that time. And then we said, I think we need you to back us up. Would you support us? We've got this idea. 100% Mix FM guarantee. Now, what is that? It actually means if you bought the album, we're telling fans, if you bought the album, and in 7 days, if you do not like the album, you could actually return it and we give you your money back at the music store that you bought it from. So by the time we brought them down for a showcase, their talents, we actually changed the album cover where you can actually see the faces. There was no stopping them further after that. And with Dr. Bombay, because not very cool, but he filmed many of his music videos in Malaysia. So we thought, and they were very cool videos because his songs were like Taxi, Taxi, the Tiger Took My Family, Shaky, Shaky Snake. So what happened was, you can imagine how cute those videos were. So we said, NTV7, between your programs and before your news, maybe you have some filler slots. So what you could do is, maybe you could help support Made in Malaysia and play those music videos for us. And guess what happened? So when Dr. Bombay came to town for a showcase, and by the way, I think Malaysia was one of the only countries outside of Europe that actually broke Dr. Bombay in Asia. And we saw children dragging along their parents, and parents, encouraging their 5-year-old to go on stage to get an autograph. So on top of that, we actually had a showcase at the zoo. Because, along with the snakes and the elephants and etc., and we actually raised funds for the zoo itself. So that was being creative at its best and thinking outside the box. Now, back to the future. So the challenge of low fare, no frills. Pardon the grammar if you see what's going to come next. Is an unfamiliar concept to Asia back then. Low fare surely means cutting costs and corners. Ticketless, maybe it is a con. You mean no ticket after I've paid for my flight? So cheap, maybe we have to stand all the way like in the bus. Pilots, maybe not train also. No seat numbers means I have to rush on board and reserve the seats with my bags, which is essentially what happened back then because there was no seat numbers, and that's what people did. They rushed on board and they tried to put the bags here and they tried to put the bags there to book the seats so that when their friends and family came on board, they could sit together. No free meals? Unreliable. Maybe they will cancel the flights if there are not enough people on board. So these were the challenges that we faced back then. So what do we have to do? The education begins. So we had to simplify many things, right? We need to simplify what we actually wanted to say. So it is very, very clear. I mean, look at the fare. It's so easy. It's 1, 2, 3. It can't get simpler than that. So these are some of the examples that we did. We were suggestive. Suggestive. You might think that you want to spend your money. suggesting that you need to go shopping, suggesting that you need to get somewhere for a holiday during the midweek when you're so stressed out with your job or with your, just before your exams or after exams. You need to celebrate, tell mom, we need to go on a holiday. So, and if you see this here, this one here, on the top half of a broadsheet and on the sports page. I mean, back then it was a bit simpler because we didn't have social media. So the media was somewhat controlled. And, if you went to a cafe or you went to the convenience store, you could actually, maybe you find these lying on top. So consciously, subconsciously, you'll find that we are constantly talking to you and suggesting something or other. And we have to be creative. We we're coming from the music business, so we worked with artists when we supported them on album tours. And, the brand experience was actually witnessed and shared with the audience. So, and we were engaging. We were engaging back then. Thank you so much. We got the community involved in our growth, involved in our success, and we got them to participate in all of the activities that we had. And, the first rate cab. So what happened was I realized that it was impossible to chase after the boss with a logo everywhere, at every interview, at every airport. So what's a better way to do an embedded marketing technique? Maybe I could stick a red cap on his head with a big logo on top. So I don't have to run around after him anymore and make sure he stands in front of the brand. So that's what we did. And it is now iconic. And we went on to build. Well, the good thing is he's very charismatic. Just like how we, in the music business, he was so charismatic that you had a first single, a second single, a first album, a second album, and a greatest hits. So that's how he was. And so we aimed to build a coveted brand so that people would wear it one day. Well, including someone there. We looked at building emotional connection. Why? Because, we were connecting families. There were family reunions, first-time flyers. So there were a lot of emotions going on. And, we shared our successes all the time. And a revolution has begun. Where were low fares before? So we got all of the feedback together. And the success of the brand made the world a smaller place because, we connected East and West. We connected ASEAN and later even beyond. We connected families who maybe don't see each other as frequently as before. So that is how we made the brand. The brand actually made the world a smaller place. The brand personality. So we made the airline a personality by itself. And then we extended it to the staff, the cabin crew, the pilots, the engineers. And subsequently, that actually looked at developing human capital. Human capital because it created careers, it created interest in aviation as an industry and investments from all these big players into Asia. What you see there is Captain Chanapon. So at the time when she signed up, so the opportunity came to Bangkok. And so what she did was she signed up to be a cadet pilot. But at the same time, she also signed up to be in the beauty pageant. And what happened was she was selected and she won to become Miss Universe Thailand. And what you see there in the costume was she actually won the best costume in Miss Universe. Brand promise. So as we were changing our fleet from the 737s, which were a little older planes, into the brand new ones, the Airbus A320, we decided that this was an opportunity for us to build our brand equity further. So we communicated a brand promise. Now, what happened was we said, you know what? On-time guarantee, very similar to Mix FM guarantee, but this time we said, if ever you flew on us and you were delayed, and the reason, not because of weather, not because of airport, but because it was entirely our fault, you would get 200 ringgit just like that. So it was an on-time guarantee campaign that we launched at that time when we wanted to share and communicate our brand promise to our customers to say, you know what, trust us, this is what we're going to give you. And now, our brand experience did not only reach out to the customers. Why? Because we wanted to have a buy-in. So our brand experience started from inside out. So we got our staff to try, and we took them out for a jaunt. Basically, it was a fly to nowhere. So everybody got very excited, got into a plane, and we just flew around and came back. Innovative. So this was when I was in Formula One. I didn't get to drive a race car, but I got to learn about technology and performance. So what we did was we thought maybe this would be helpful because at 30,000 feet in the air, guess what all that does to your body? So we created compression tops, the white top here that you see, for our cabin crew and also for our ramp, because our ramp are our baggage handlers, and what they do is they have to, lift heavy bags. We paid tribute, we celebrated successes, we compiled all passenger feedback, and we advertised it and communicated the fact that, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of us, for contributing to our success, And, you see, we never plain advertise. We were always communicating something, a value, a promise, or something, selling something all the time. Now, we also shared that with our staff because, they are the power of the people, basically, right, that actually powered the airline and made it possible, made things possible. So, we even painted a plane back then when we won the first award, being the Asia Pacific Airline of the Year. And when the boss was voted CEO of the Year, we couldn't help, but we also sold some more low fares. So bold, I don't need to say further and explain about this. So remember when I mentioned just now about the airline being a personality. So do you see this here? There's a new girl in town. I was actually referring to the airplane. She's twice the fun and half the price, not the girls. And so that's an ad here that we took out during the time when we were flying to Singapore, because they were rather strict on certain things, so we were just trying to be a bit funny by saying that low price flights are still legal. So in being our Malaysian Singapore thing sometimes, so we needed to show our cooperation that we actually landed in Changi. So, the bosses had to stick the flags out and waved the moment we landed. We weren't sure whether the airport authorities was going to let us do that, but we did it anyway. And we were in London, and you see this one here? So here, actually we wanted to be on the red card and have the logo there. But they said, no, you can't. So visibility and credibility, as I mentioned earlier just now, some of the challenges that we face, right? So what we did is we had to constantly position ourselves in such a way. So we lent on strengths of our partners, and we always partnered with the best. And you see, that's what we did. It was a strategy in the communications of what we wanted to portray, what we wanted to say, and how we wanted to say it, and who we wanted to say it with, because all of that added to the value of the brand. Now, this is our first annual report. At that time, we had one of the largest IPO in Malaysia, and because AirAsia drew a lot of attention, so what we did was, we convinced our partners, please, maybe you would be very interested to advertise in our annual report so that you could help us cut some costs too. And they did, and it has been a tradition ever since, and until today, that is what they do. Media relationship, this has been very critical in the success of AirAsia because, just like in the music business, we built a direct relationship with the media. Back then, I was a one-person show, and subsequently, I went on to build a team. How we all started was the fact that, I mentioned about there was no social media back then, so bought all the newspapers, bought all the magazines, every day, looked at all the names of journalists, looked at all the names of the editors, and started building a database. So that was what I went through in the music business, and I did the same thing in aviation. because they have different news desks altogether. And yeah, so we went on, including, you see how our relationship is with the media. If you look at this one here, it's a memo. So there was a slight incident in one of the airports, right? And we actually approach the media very frankly and say, hey, look here, we can't tell you everything because it may be under investigation, but if you want to know something, come to us, because otherwise it may not be accurate, whatever information that you're getting. And so, the growth story is very much my growth as well. I was there from day one and went on to build a team. Subsequently, we managed everything internally, everything. We didn't have an agency, so all the plans, all the copywriting, all the designs, everything was done in-house. One of the reasons was we initially attempted working with agencies, that is creative agencies, but we realized that they can't cope with what we wanted, because we are changing and we're wanting like yesterday, we want this yesterday, now. And the way we acted and reacted to the market, because we created opportunities. When we see a headline, we want to act. We don't want to wait like, a week later. So that's the reason how we did it, and the only way we could control that is to have everything in-house. So I would like to share with you about this. Desi. So Desi came to me a month before she had to go to Johns Hopkins University to pursue her master's. She came up to me to say, hey, do you remember the challenge that you gave me back then? She actually thanked me because of where and what she's become, and she was off to Johns Hopkins. And then she said, I said, I don't quite remember, what did I say? She said, you told me 5 is not a number. And I was like, okay, what was that about? So she said it was at a media conference or some media event, and I had asked her, so Desi, how many have you confirmed who's going to come to the event? And then she said 5. And I said, what? 5? 5 is not a number. So that's what I told her. And I relocated her from Thailand, where she was based, although she was Filipino. And so she came down to Malaysia because she was junior staff at that time. So she came as a junior staff, junior salary, not expat, and lived like a local. So she basically was not on a very big salary to begin with, but she took up the challenge. And so today, after her master's, she's come back to the company, and she's now, I think, the head of ASEAN affairs, if I'm not mistaken. And Venice. So Venice, I had a chance. So Venice came up to me, and actually, she texted me and said, would you attend my graduation from flying school? And then she said, do you remember the challenge you gave me? I said, well, yes, I remember very vividly. So Venice is a cabin crew. And she wanted to broaden her experience. And then we had an opening in a department called corporate culture. And then she said, yeah, I want to take up a job there. So it's more a bit office space, but you deal with a lot of staff and staff activities and staff affairs, corporate culture. And during that time, I wasn't quite sure, maybe 2 years later, I wasn't quite sure whether, it was really for her, or maybe she would be better back in flying. She was an excellent crew. She had a higher sales for in-flight sales, and she was excellent customer service. So I said, let's take a challenge and say, send you back to flying. Let's see what happens. So she went back to flying, and then she came back and told me, you know what? I think I want to be a pilot. So Venice is now a pilot, and she's graduated, and she's now been flying as a co-pilot now. It's still very new. So on a personal level, I think change is something that, I take very close to my heart as well. With change, we create opportunities. We empower agents of change. We evoke leaders of change. And with that, there's more opportunity for success.